A quiet kid is being bullied by a group of kids. They could never imagine, though, that the kid they are picking on is the vice president's son. When Elias Grayson stepped into Westfield High in Arlington, Virginia, no one paid much attention. It was mid-October, the leaves outside turning brittle and gold, and the hallways buzzed with the usual chaos of a semester in full swing. Elias was just another junior transfer, slipping into the crowd like a ghost. His dark hair was slightly messy, his jeans were plain, and his gray jacket looked like it had seen better days. He carried a beat-up backpack over one shoulder and kept his head down, eyes tracing the scuffed linoleum as he moved toward his locker. No one whispered, no one stared. He was invisible. And that's how he wanted it. Elias wasn't scared. He'd learned long ago how to read a room, how to blend in. Growing up in the shadow of power taught you that. His dad, Vice President Daniel Grayson, was a name everyone knew, a face on TV screens and campaign posters, but Elias had spent his life dodging that spotlight. His mom had insisted on public school this time. You need normal, Eli, and his dad had agreed, though reluctantly. So here he was, no Secret Service detail, no fancy car drop-off, just a kid with a Metro pass and a packed lunch. He'd begged for that much. No fuss, no attention. They'd compromised. His protection was a phone with a panic button app, and that was it. First period was U.S. history. And Elias slid into a seat near the back. The teacher, Mrs. Hargrove, barely glanced at him as she handed out worksheets. A few kids looked over, sizing him up. New kid, quiet, nothing special. One girl with braids muttered something to her friend, but it didn't carry. Elias opened his notebook and started writing, keeping his movements small. He'd learned in his last school, a private academy in D.C., that standing out got you noticed, and being noticed got complicated fast. Here, he just wanted to coast. By lunch, he'd found a routine. Grab a tray, sit alone, eat fast. The cafeteria was loud. Trays clattering, voices overlapping, laughter spiking like static. Elias picked a table near the exit, away from the clusters of cliques. He unwrapped a turkey sandwich and took a bite, eyes on his phone, scrolling through nothing in particular. That's when he heard it. Yo, what's with the thrift store vibes? The voice was sharp, cutting through the noise. Elias didn't look up, but he felt the shift. Someone was watching him. He took another bite, slow and deliberate. A shadow fell across his table. He glanced up. A broad-shouldered kid in a Letterman jacket stood there, arms crossed, smirking. Behind him were two others, one lanky with a buzz cut, the other shorter, chewing gum like it was a job. The leader, Elias would later learn his name was Tanner Holt, tilted his head. You hear me, new kid? What's your deal? You look like you rolled out of a donation bin. Elias blinked, set his sandwich down and wiped his hands on a napkin. Just eating, he said, voice flat. Tanner laughed, loud enough to draw eyes from nearby tables. Just eating, he mimicked. What's that, your life story? Come on, man, give us something. You mute or just slow? The lanky one, Jake, snickered. Maybe he's got no friends 'cause he smells like mothballs. Elias didn't flinch. He'd heard worse. He picked up his sandwich again, took a bite, and chewed like they weren't there. That was his first mistake. Silence wasn't weakness to these guys. It was a challenge. Tanner leaned in, voice dropping. You think you're too good to talk? That it? Elias met his eyes for a second, then looked away. I'm just trying to eat, he said again. Quieter this time. Leave him alone, Tanner. A girl's voice cut in from a few tables over. Elias didn't look, but he caught her tone sharp, annoyed. Tanner straightened, grinning. Relax, Mia. We're just welcoming him. Right, boys? Jake and the gum chewer, Colton nodded, still laughing. Elias stood, grabbed his tray and walked off. No scene, no comeback. He dumped his half-eaten lunch in the trash and headed for the hallway. Behind him, Tanner called out, see you around thrift shop. Laughter followed, but Elias kept moving. It didn't stop there. By the end of the week, it was a game. In gym, someone accidentally tripped him during a dodgeball drill. In the hall, his locker got tagged with a Sharpie, loser in block letters. It wiped off, but the message stuck. Tanner's crew didn't let up. Snide comments in passing, a shove by the water fountain, a fake cough that sounded like poor kid. Elias took it all in stride, head down, mouth shut. He wasn't here to fight, he just wanted to get through the day. At home, he didn't say much. His mom, Laura, was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. His dad was still at the White House, probably buried in briefings. Elias dropped his bag by the stairs and grabbed a glass of water. "How's school?" Laura asked, not looking up. "Fine," he said. She paused, knife hovering over a carrot. "You sure?" "Yeah." He took a sip and headed upstairs. Fine was easier than the truth. Tanner Holt wasn't the type to let things go. He was a linebacker, a junior with college scouts already sniffing around, and he carried himself like Westfield High was his kingdom. Elias's quiet defiance, his refusal to react, gnawed at him. By Friday it wasn't just a joke anymore, it was personal. It happened after school, near the bike racks. Elias was unlocking his chain when Tanner and his crew rolled up. The lot was mostly empty, just a few stragglers heading to buses or cars. Tanner kicked a pebble that skittered past Elias's feet. "Hey Grayson," he said, voice casual but edged. "You ever gonna talk, or you just gonna keep acting like a weirdo?" Elias straightened, sliding his lock into his bag. "I don't have anything to say to you." Jake laughed. "Oh, he speaks. Miracle." Tanner stepped closer. "Do you think you're better than us, huh? Walking around like you don't need anybody. What's your deal, man? You some kind of freak?" Elias zipped his bag, keeping his movements steady. "I just want to go home." "Yeah?" Tanner shoved him, not hard, just enough to make him stumble. Elias caught himself, hands tightening on his straps. "Go on then," Tanner said. "Run home to your mommy." Colton smirked, popping his gum. "Bet he doesn't even have a mom. Probably lives in a cardboard box." Elias's jaw tightened, just for a second. He turned to leave, but Jake blocked his path, grinning. "Where you going, thrift shop? We're not done." "I am," Elias said, stepping around him. That's when Tanner grabbed his shoulder and spun him back. "You don't walk away from me," he snapped, shoving again. Harder this time. Elias hit the bike rack, metal clanging against his hip. He didn't swing back, he didn't need to, he just stared, eyes cold and steady. "Back off," he said, voice low. Tanner laughed, but there was a flicker of something uncertainty. "Maybe." "Or what, you gonna cry?" Elias didn't answer. He adjusted his bag and walked away, heart pounding but steps, even. Behind him Tanner yelled, "That's right, keep running." Jake and Colton hooted, but Elias didn't look back. That night, he couldn't shake it. He sat on his bed staring at the ceiling. His hip ached where the rack had hit. But that wasn't what bothered him. It was the way Tanner's voice echoed. The way the laughter stuck like tar. He dealt with bullies before. Rich kids at his old school who mocked his normal clothes, even with his dad's title, but this felt different. This was relentless. His dad got home late, tay loosened, briefcase in hand. Elias heard the front door click and waited. Daniel Grayson wasn't the type to hover. He trusted Elias to handle himself, but tonight, Elias needed him. "Dad?" he called, stepping into the hall. Daniel looked up, tired eyes softening. "Hey kid, what's up?" Elias hesitated, then said it, "Some guys at school won't leave me alone." Daniel set his briefcase down, frowning. "What do you mean?" "They're just picking on me, shoving me, saying stuff." Elias shrugged, like it was no big deal, but his voice cracked just enough to betray him. Daniel's face hardened. "Who?" "Tanner Holt, Jake Reese, Colton Dunn. It's not a big thing, It's a big thing if they're putting hands on you." Daniel cut in. He stepped closer, voice dropping. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Didn't want to bother you, you're busy." "Eli, I'm never too busy for this." Daniel rubbed his jaw, thinking. "You want me to call the school?" "No," Elias said quickly. "I can handle it. I just needed to tell someone." Daniel nodded, but Elias could see the wheels turning. His dad wasn't the type to let things slide. Not when it came to family. Monday morning, Elias walked into school expecting more of the same. He was wrong. The air felt off, charged, like static before a storm. In homeroom, kids whispered, glancing his way. By second period, he caught the word Grayson bouncing around, sharp and curious. At lunch, it hit him. Nia, the girl who'd told Tanner to back off, sat down across from him, eyes wide. "Is it true?" "Is what true?" Elias asked, poking at his fries. That your dad's the vice president? Elias froze, fork halfway to his mouth. Who said that? Everyone. It's all over school. Someone saw your dad on TV last night. And Tanner's been telling people you're some big shots kid who thinks he's untouchable. Elias's stomach dropped. He hadn't told anyone, not a teacher, not a friend. But his dad had been on a news segment Sunday night, a quick clip about a policy rollout, and the resemblance must have clicked for someone. Tanner, probably, piecing it together after Friday's shove. It's not like that, Elias muttered. Mia leaned in. Doesn't matter, Tanner's pissed. He's saying you've been hiding it to mess with people. I haven't been hiding anything. I just didn't say it. She shrugged. Good luck with that. By afternoon the story had legs. Tanner cornered him in the hallway, flanked by Jake and Colton. So Mr. VP Jr., he sneered. What's it like having daddy run the country while you play poor kid? Elias kept walking. Leave it alone, Tanner. Nah. This is too good. You think you're hot shit, huh? Secret Service gonna come save you? There's no Secret Service, Elias said, turning. It's just me. Tanner smirked. We'll see. That night, Daniel noticed Elias's silence at dinner. Something happened today? Elias pushed his peas around his plate. They found out who you are. Daniel set his fork down. How? I don't know. TV, maybe. Tanner's making it a thing. Daniel's eyes narrowed. He's the one shoving you. Yeah. Enough's enough, Daniel said, standing. I'm calling the school tomorrow. Dad, no. Eli, they're harassing you. I'm not sitting on this. Elias wanted to argue, but he knew that look. The vice president wasn't just his dad anymore. He was a man with power, and he was about to use it. Tuesday morning, Principal Carter got a call from the vice president's office. By noon, Tanner, Jake, and Colton were in her office, sweating under her glare. You've been targeting Elias Grayson, she said. Voice like steel. Care to explain? Tanner shifted. We were just messing around. He's the one acting all high and mighty. He says you shoved him multiple times. He's lying, Jake cut in. He's just mad 'cause we called him out. Carter leaned forward. You're lucky I don't suspend you on the spot. His father's involved now. This isn't a game. The boys went pale. Tanner muttered. He started it, but it sounded weak. Word spread fast. By Wednesday the story was a wildfire. Elias Grayson, VP's son, bullied by Westfield's Golden Boys, a local news van showed up outside school. Cameras rolling. Sources say the vice president's son has been targeted by classmates. A reporter chirped. The White House has declined to comment. Elias hated it. He skipped lunch, hiding in the library, but the whispers followed. Kids stared like he was a zoo exhibit. Tanner's crew kept their distance, but the damage was done. Thursday it got worse. A right-wing blog picked up the story, spinning it into a conspiracy. VP Grayson's son infiltrates public school. Why? Comments flooded in, some calling Elias a spoiled brat, others accusing his dad of planting him to spy on real Americans. Tanner's dad, a local contractor with a loud mouth, told a reporter, "My kid's no bully. That Grayson boy's got an agenda." Friday, the White House press secretary dodged questions. But the vice president's office issued a statement. Daniel Grayson is focused on his duties, not schoolyard disputes. It didn't help. Social media exploded. Westfield Gate trended, with memes of Elias in a suit, captioned, "Secret Agent Kid." At home Elias snapped. You said you'd just call the school, Dad. Now it's everywhere. Daniel rubbed his temples. I didn't expect this, Eli. I just wanted them to back off. Well, they didn't. And now I'm a freak show. Laura stepped in. We'll fix this. It'll blow over. It didn't. Monday morning hit like a freight train. Elias Grayson woke to the sound of gravel crunching under tires outside his suburban home. He peeked through the blinds, 2 black SUVs, tinted windows, parked crookedly in the driveway. The Secret Service had arrived, 2 agents in plain clothes, dark suits, straining at the shoulders, stepped out and strode to the front door. Elias met them there, his stomach twisting. Precaution, one said, his voice flat, like he'd said it 1,000 times. The other adjusted his earpiece, scanning the street with cold mechanical precision. Elias hated those earpieces. Tiny, coiled wires snaking into their collars like something out of a spy movie. He hated the way they turned his quiet life into a circus. At Westfield High, they didn't follow him inside, but they lingered near the parking lot, leaning against their vehicle, eyes hidden behind sunglasses. Everyone noticed. Whispers rippled through the halls, heads turning as Elias shoved his hands deeper into his hoodie pockets. Tanner, a wiry kid with a permanent smirk, caught his eye from across the courtyard. He nudged Jake, a stocky junior with a buzz cut, and muttered, "Told you he's a big deal." Jake snickered, kicking at the dirt. Elias pretended not to hear, but the weight of their stares stuck with him all day. By evening, the story broke on national news. Senator J.D. Marshall, a hardline populist with a voice like gravel and a penchant for red ties, seized it like a lifeline. On a cable news segment, he leaned into the camera, jabbing a finger at the lens. "If Grayson's kid can't handle a little roughhousing, maybe he shouldn't be in our schools. Those boys Tanner, Jake, Colton, their families are good Americans. This is a witch hunt." Spittle flecked his lips as he ranted, his face flushed with righteous fury. Elias watched it on his phone, jaw tight, as his dad, Vice President Daniel Grayson, paced the living room, muttering about political vultures. Marshall didn't stop there. He met Tanner's dad, Rick, a burly contractor with calloused hands and a pickup truck plastered with patriotic stickers. Rick told reporters his son was traumatized by the attention, his voice cracking for effect. Jake's mom, a tired-looking woman with dyed blonde hair, posted a tearful video on X. "They're ruining my boy's life over nothing. He's a good kid." The clip racked up thousands of shares, her mascara-streaked face becoming a rallying cry. Colton's parents, quieter types, kept their heads down, but the narrative swelled anyway. 3 all-American kids pitted against a privileged elite. Elias, the vice president's son. Tuesday, Marshall turned up the heat. In a Senate speech streamed live across every major network, he demanded an investigation into foreign influences at Westfield High. He stood at the podium, sleeves rolled up, his voice booming through the chamber. These families, good hard-working people, might be victims of a setup. We need to know who's pulling the strings. He dug into their backgrounds with theatrical flair. Jake's dad was a mechanic, grease-stained and gruff. Tanner's dad, the contractor, had a crew of 6. Colton's mom was a nurse. Her scrubs faded from long shifts. All U.S. citizens, born and raised, except Marshall twisted it. Who knows where their loyalties lie? He thundered, eyes glinting as his base ate it up. Wednesday brought the fallout. ICE raided Jake's uncle's auto shop at dawn. Boots stomping through the garage, claiming irregularities in paperwork from years back. Tools clattered to the floor as agents hauled out files, leaving the place a wreck. Thursday, Tanner's dad got a deportation notice in the mail. The clerical error tied to his grandfather, who'd immigrated legally from Canada in the 60s, now dredged up like buried treasure. Colton's mom, a naturalized citizen from Mexico with a spotless record, faced a review of her status. None of it added up, but Marshall's machine churned on, fueled by outrage and bad faith, his supporters flooding X with hashtags like "Justice for Patriots." Elias watched it unravel from his bedroom, sprawled on the bed, scrolling through the chaos on his phone. "Dad, they're deporting their families," he shouted, voice cracking. Downstairs, Daniel was on a call, his tie loosened, face etched with exhaustion. "I didn't ask for this," he said, rubbing his temples. "Marshall's grandstanding. I'm trying to stop it." "Stop it? You started it." Elias snapped, his chest tight with guilt and anger. "I didn't mean," Daniel cut off, exhaling sharply through his nose. "I'll fix it." His voice was firm, but his eyes betrayed the strain. Friday, Westfield High was a ghost town. Protesters clogged the streets outside, waving signs, some demanding fairness for the boys, others decrying government overreach. News vans lined the parking lot, their satellite dishes piercing the gray sky. Elias stayed home, lying on his bed, staring at the cracked paint on the ceiling. Tanner, Jake, and Colton had been suspended pending a hearing. But their families were in free fall. Lawyers, paperwork, sleepless nights. Marshall doubled down on TV, his voice hoarse but unrelenting. "This is justice for patriots, plain and simple." That night, Elias couldn't sleep. The guilt gnawed at him. Those kids were jerks, sure, But this, he sat at his desk, the glow of his laptop casting shadows on the walls, and wrote a letter. Not to his dad, not to the school, to the press. His fingers trembled as he typed, raw and unfiltered. Then emailed it to a local reporter he'd seen lurking near the school, her notepad always in hand. I'm Elias Grayson. My dad's the vice president. I didn't tell anyone because I wanted to be normal. Tanner, Jake, and Colton picked on me, shoving, taunts, stupid stuff. I told my dad because I was tired of it, not because I wanted this cameras, deportations, any of it. They were jerks, but their families don't deserve this. Neither do I. Leave us all alone. Saturday it ran front page in the local paper. The headline stark, VP's son speaks out. The backlash flipped overnight. Marshall's stunt, once a rallying cry, now looked cruel, not clever. Protest shifted. People marched with signs reading "Let them stay." Daniel worked back channels, his phone buzzing non-stop, and by Monday the deportation orders were paused. Marshall slunk off, muttering about deep state meddling on a late-night podcast, his fire dim. At school, Elias walked in alone. No agents, no fanfare. The air smelled of wet grass and stale lockers. Tanner, Jake, and Colton were back, heads low, their usual swagger gone. No one spoke to him, but the hostility had faded into something wary. Almost respectful. At lunch, Mia, a girl with sharp eyes and a habit of sketching in the margins of her notes, caught him at a table alone. You wrote that? She asked, sliding her tray across from him. Yeah, he said, poking at his food. Brave, she replied, her voice quiet but sure. She stayed, eating in silence. It wasn't much, small gesture, but it felt like a start. Elias didn't win friends or glory. The halls stayed quiet around him, a real quiet, not the tense cane that invites trouble. He walked home that day, the wind cool against his face, and thought maybe, just maybe, that was enough.